Today Jake makes fire from the sun. Today Jake cuts a golf ball in half.
What's happening in the shed today?
Well, I'm looking at a range of research on the topic of materials and their properties. And these books are just some of the books I've been using to research with you, Jake, some of the characteristics of materials and why we use them, and a little bit of history behind it. It's a really good one here by James Dyson, and I've been studying this at great length. Jake.
Did he invent the Dyson Hoover?
He did. He is Mr. Dyson. And we're going to look at a little later in the topics on the videos on some of the materials used in space flight, but that is quite complex. But a lot of the space materials used in today's perhaps products were used back in the 1950s and 60s in some of the early Apollo missions. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. But I thought it would be a good starting point, perhaps, to look at, what happened many years ago, even millions of years ago. And this book does actually touch on some of the points I'd like to make. And it talks about the types of technology that made civilization possible in certain areas of the world and actually allowed that civilizations to improve and become larger in terms of their ability to work and make products.
Looks like you, Dad.
Well, I am old, and that's 2.6 million years ago, so not quite that old. But it's a good piece of research here I've looked at, and this is how ancient African people, civilizations, carved stone very carefully to actually make instruments and artifacts that could be used to weave cloth and make food and being used as weapons. And as I go through the book, there's so many really good examples of how evolution has affected society, and society in some ways has then developed from it. I mean, it talks about the development of even things like the wheel and the use of bone to make musical instruments to ward off potentially danger, but also perhaps for gathering sheep. But look at the old musical instruments here, look at that, all carved very carefully, but from certain materials that would have been carefully chosen. What do you think that is, Jake?
Maybe some sort of clock?
Yes, that is a computer.
Wow.
So it's not a clock at all, although it does have lots of mechanisms involved, doesn't it? Gears and ratio changes. And that was developed by Charles Babbage. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So it's a mechanical working calculator. So it calculated number by movement, not by electronics, as they do now, of course. So, yeah, look at the use of the mechanisms and use of materials. Sadly, Jake, not all inventions and use of materials are good things, and that's the Maxim gun. Not a good invention at all. Horrible, caused massive casualties in the wars. Okay, but let's cheer up things a bit. And to our topic on working properties of materials, and this is the Saturn V rocket from 1960, or 1969 in fact, and it was an amazing piece of technology at the time, and the technology behind the materials and the material science was incredible and actually world beating at the time, as it probably still is in many ways now. And I thought we'll go back to that later, but we're also going to be looking at how the propulsion systems on other things work, and perhaps look at the jet engine in a minute. But televisions have developed massively over the years, and you may not remember, or certainly won't know because won't be old enough, televisions used to work in a very different way, completely different way, using what they called a cathode ray tube. They don't use that now, it's all LED and OLED technology and liquid technology. Anyway, here's Sir Frank Whittle. He's the developer of one of the first jet engines and the founder of a lot of the technology used. And there he is. I've met him actually, a very interesting man. Jake.
Have you met him in person?
I have. I shook his hand, and we spoke at great length about his life developing the jet engine. Very interesting man. We're going to now focus a little bit looking at Frank Whittle's engine and the engine materials used. We're going to be looking at working properties, because the scientists developing the engines all those years ago and today would have had to consider many aspects of the materials they were going to use or propose to use in order to make an engine or rocket that works successfully.
Looks like there was a lot of development in the 1920s.
Well, actually, it was the 1900s and late 18th century that we've seen the most development to date, really. But development of materials seems to be increasing as the years go on. So I think we'll see some really impressive new materials coming on the market and being seen in new products in the next few years. On stress and strain, Jake.
Using a glove.
Using a glove. Right, pull. It's got a plastic. It's going to break. Jake, pull.
Oh my God.